and who are not taking no for an answer. There are students in all sorts of other places who will continue this fight, and as I told the Halton Board, the issue is not going away. And the Dufferin Peel Catholic School Board, when they said no, when they put out their open letter to the community, as devastating as that decision was, and as questionable as what they were talking about, their letter was still full of language that we might not have heard in another era. They talked about equality, they talked about diversity and safety, and they even said, and I'm quoting here, that they need to be raising awareness of and or battling issues such as racism, intolerance, bullying, and homophobia. It may not be good enough. Their purposes may be very questionable, but this is still a victory. It is still an acknowledgement, I'm wrapping right here, there's still an acknowledgement that there is homophobia and that it needs to be eradicated.
Thank you, Noah.
All I want to say is that with a little bit more work and a lot more perseverance, I, for one, am confident that there are bigger victories still to come, and soon. Thank you.
I don't care what religion it is. I think that the dichotomy created particularly for the Catholic school system teaches us or tells us that some religions are preferred over others. I think that's problematic. I think it's problematic that my tax dollars go to funding a system which tells people that I am somehow lesser. And whether that's that I'm lesser because I'm queer, or because I'm of color, or because I'm Muslim, or I'm this religion, or I'm that religion, or so on and so forth, is to me really irrelevant at the end. What we should be creating is a society and a nation that celebrates our unique talents and our diversity. We talk about multiculturalism, but that's not enough. We need to manifest that as an integrated society that celebrates and rejoices in our differences. Using our tax dollars or my tax dollars to fund somebody else's religious education. Do that in your homes, do that in your communities. Have heritage programming. Why do we have Catholic school systems that then say, well, no, you don't have access to GSAs or you can't use the G word here? I really want to thank the panel, the organizers of this panel for having put this together. I would have really liked to have also seen some representation from some of the other religious schools, even though not public funded, including Jewish, Muslim, and Hindu schools, to see where they are on creating safe spaces for queer kids. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Al-Farouk. Our next panelist is Jay Wallace. And Jay is representing the LGBTQ Parenting Network. Jay first got involved with the Parenting Network 8 years ago as a participant in the Daddies and Papas course, and has been involved ever since as a volunteer. This year he developed and taught the Trans Masculine People Considering Pregnancy course, and co-facilitated the new queer and trans family planning. By day, Jay is the Gay Straight Alliance Equity Facilitator for the Halton District School Board. And as part of the Equity and Inclusive Education team, he works across that board addressing equity and inclusion issues connected to sexual orientation and gender identity. Please give it up for Jay.
So I'm going to start out by saying GSAs are a 20-year-old concept. If GSA was a student, the GSA would have graduated from high school at this point and been released out in the world. And it's amazing to me we're still having a fairly fundamental conversation. As I thought about how do we make it better, I broke this into several categories. And I'm going to go through them. I'm going to say students were already leading the way in so many pieces. So I only have a few words of encouragement. The first being, know your voice matters. Schools see you as very credible, and we need to hear from you. Know that you deserve better. We are failing you now, and you deserve better. Don't let us old people set limits for you. And ask for help, and don't let us take over. Otherwise, the students were already doing work that the rest of us could well get involved with. The Parenting Network thinks a lot about LGBTQ parents and our families and our children in schools, and that our children don't suddenly start being part of LGBTQ families when they hit high school, but already are part of LGBTQ families, communities, and cultures when they enter the school system. So from some words for parents: don't be an unknown. I hear stories of parents in same-sex relationships who don't feel comfortable registering both of them as parents with the school. So one parent goes to parent-teacher meetings, one parent goes to school concerts, one parent shows up to volunteer, and only one parent is available to collect a child if a child is sick. We are shortchanging those families. Reward positive behavior in your teachers. Talk to librarians about acquisitions. Most librarians are really excited to discover people who want to help them improve their collections. Teach your child pride, and listen to and believe in your students. As I was making my list, I realized I had more to say to teachers and to schools than any other category. So I'm going to start out by saying, start this work in kindergarten. When I talk to students, students consistently say, if we wait till high school, we are already too late. And that for them, the worst period of time is in fact in middle school. It's important to listen to that. Start in kindergarten. Talk about families, talk about love, talk about inclusion, talk about ending hate. Set the tone. LGBTQ Parenting Network did research with students, and the students said, if the teacher sets the tone at the beginning of the year and says what is and is not acceptable, and then is clear and continues that throughout the year, their climate can be really quite good. If the teacher doesn't, and the student has to complain and complain and complain again, and any action that happens by the teacher is seen as, because that student ratted me out, that student often suffers worse repercussions. We can't let our students do that work for us, and we can't let them take the risks for doing that work for us. Meet your job requirements. Making safe schools for people of all sexual orientations and gender identities at every age, and for our children and our cousins and our nephews and our friends and all the people who are not LGBTQ2IQQAA who still get targeted by homophobia and transphobia, is a job requirement for teachers. When students run GSAs, and I don't care if they are gay straight alliances, queer straight alliances, pride groups, kaleidoscopes, rainbow leagues, love is love groups, or any other name, let the students run them. The very best groups are, in fact, student-run and student-led. And the students that I work with and talk with aren't dodging away from G as the gay word because we can't say gay. They're dodging away from G as the gay word because it doesn't include all of us. And we need to include all of us. It's not just about gay and straight people. It's about a lot more than that. If schools are asking students to take on their work by training them, and to be clear, it is the work of schools and not the work of students, give students the resources to do it. Give them money, give them tools, give them time with staff, and recognize that we are having our students provide professional development to our staff in schools. And think about how many other issues do we have to have our students training our staff? Not very many, and it really says there's a lack happening there. When we do this work in schools, don't ask permission. There really is a model of what if parents complain, what will happen then? And I'd much rather see a model of, we're not asking permission, this is equity work, it's human rights work, it's part of education. But we certainly can invite parents in. We can invite parents in and say, we are excited to be doing this. We're pleased to be doing this. This is part of our curriculum. Here's some questions to engage in with your student at home. Come see what we're doing. And the more parents see that we are proud to do this work, that it's part of what's going on and part of our school community, the more parents feel like they really perhaps should get on board with it. And connected to that is, we need to make sure our schools know that our communities are more ready than they fear. And time again, when we take on this work in places, our communities really are more ready than schools fear. And we cannot let a small number of hateful voices dictate what the community's values are. The other thing to schools is to really say, having a GSA or an equity group or a pride group is not enough. Make sure that group is publicly known, that it has the option of being on the website, the option of being in the agenda, the option of being in the yearbook. Don't hide your GSA, don't hide your QSA, don't hide your equity group. People need to know that the school stands behind, endorses, and supports. And then I have a few quick things to say to the rest of us. And part of this comes from a Day of Pink, and I love that the Day of Pink is about a joyous and creative response to homophobic bullying. And I want to say, as a community, we need to give our schools examples of joyous, fulfilled, exuberant LGBTQ lives. We need to stop telling stories and narratives that are about suffering and pain without also sharing stories of joy. We need to, as LGBTQ adults, be present in our schools, at career days, at school concerts, at craft sales, donating to auctions. Our visibility matters, and we can't straighten up to come to school. We can't let the voices of the fearful people dominate, and we need to make friends with our schools and with our policymakers. And if we can't make friends with them, we can make frequent acquaintances.
Thank you for that, Jay. Our last panelist, but certainly not our least panelist, almost needs no introduction. Rosario Marchese, MPP and education critic for the NDP here in Ontario. Rosario has been a member of provincial parliament for 21 years. Known as the education advocate, he's a former teacher and school trustee. As an MPP, Rosario has been a tireless advocate for both culture and education. In 1990-91, he was Minister of Culture and Communications, overseeing the largest increase to arts in Ontario history up to that point. Currently, he's the NDP critic for the GTA under education, training colleges and universities, and has been a very strong advocate for gay-straight alliances in all of our schools, as well as new changes to the sex ed curriculum. Rosario is also one of the few provincial MPPs, along with the rest of the NDP caucus, who came out publicly in support of St. Joseph's School students who were denied a chance to form a gay-straight alliance, raising questions in the legislature as to why the Ministry of Education is allowing this ban to take place in Catholic schools. Please join me in a very warm welcome for Rosario.
Thanks very much again. I first want to thank Queer Ontario and Extra for pushing me and insisting for a reaction until they got one. And after the meeting with Queer Ontario, we agreed that I would ask the two questions, one on sex education and the other on the gay-straight alliances, and we've done that. But you deserve credit for that. And we need to be pushed, which is the message I will try to conclude with at the end of my remarks. Because in politics, it is about political pressure. And if you don't apply political pressure, we will not do the right thing as much as we should. And on the whole issue of the healthy living document, the sex education document, it's a good document. And I want to thank Ken again for making references to this at our meeting. This is the document that a year ago the Minister of Education was going to introduce as the updated document on healthy living, sex education. And I believe it's one of the better things that we could be doing, should have done. And I supported the Minister when she presented it, and no sooner did she present this new health curriculum that the very next day the Premier backed off. Under pressure from a few individuals in society who don't like a number of references in this document, the Premier backed off. And it's a shame, because it is a